Hey guys, what's up? Hope you're ready for a awesome lesson because I'm gonna sing to you. I'm just saying, I got a pretty great voice. So Algebra 1 9.6, we're doing the quadratic formula. So we're still solving equations. So far we've done factoring and the square root method. But now we're gonna talk about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula does work for every single problem. So in standard form, we have ax squared plus bx plus c. So an example would be x squared plus 2x plus 3. Your A in this case would be 1, your B would be 2, and your C would be 3. Alright, so the quadratic formula goes like this. There is a song. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Kind of goes like with Pop Goes the Weasel. I mean, you can sing with me if you want. I know it's pretty tempting. So one more time. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And you can just imagine me dancing to it. You know it's going to be a great song. So hope you guys enjoyed that. But that is the quadratic formula. So you definitely need to write this down on your piece of paper somewhere or memorize a song, memorize something to help you know the formula. So it says, how can you use the quadratic formula to find the solutions of x squared minus 7 equals 4x? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to get everything to one side. So I'm going to take that equation and I'm going to subtract my 4x over. Now that 4x is going to go in the middle and then minus 7 is going to go at the end. It's going to equal 0 now. So now we're thinking, oh, maybe I can factor it. I can't do the square root method. But if you try to factor it, it doesn't work. So you use the quadratic formula to solve it. My A is 1. My B is negative 4. My C is negative 7. So my answers are this. X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC, so that means multiplying, all over 2A, so 2 times 1. So now I'm going to simplify. Negative times a negative would be a positive 4 plus or minus. This is going to become 16. If you have a negative here, squaring it, guys, your first number inside the square root is always going to be positive. Then I have negative 4 times negative 7, which would be plus 28, all over 2. Simplify some more. So now what I want you to do on your calculator, type in the square root of 44. You get a decimal. Go ahead and write that decimal. So it's 6.63 divided by 2. From there, you're trying to find a plus or minus button on your calculator. You're not going to have that. So what that means is we're going to split it into two things. We're going to split it into 4 plus 6.63 divided by 2 and 4 minus 6.63 divided by 2. And that's how you get your two answers. So the positive one is going to be 5.32. So I would add 4 and divide by 2. The negative one is going to be negative 1.32. And they can both be positive, both be negative. It just depends on the problem, guys. All right, so that's my two answers using the quadratic formula. We're going to try this again with this one. What I like to do is I like to keep my x squared positive. So I'm going to move these two to the other side. So 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 21. Now I can go through. My A is 1. My B is 4. My C is negative 21. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Simplify some more. Negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 plus get my calculator out. 21 times 4 would be 84 all over 2. So simplify some more. The square root of 100 is 10. So this time you don't have a decimal, which is really nice. Now to get my two answers, I do negative 4 plus 10 and negative 4 minus 10. So that would be 6 divided by 2, which would be 3. Negative 14 divided by 2 would be negative 7. So my answers are 3 and -7. If you get whole numbers, you probably could have factored the problem, but the quadratic formula always works. All right, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to try this problem. Just pause the video and try it, and then I'll give you the answer when you guys come back. All right, so hopefully you tried that problem. I went ahead and did it. I'm going to show you what I did though. So I did x squared minus 2x minus 24. I subtracted the 24 over. I figured out my a, my b, and my c, and I plugged it in my equation. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I plugged in my numbers right here. This is my step one. I simplified again, simplified a little bit further, and then I found out my two answers are 6 and -4, which means I could have factored if I wanted to. But again, the quadratic formula works every single time. Now this one says, how can you determine the number of solutions of a quadratic equation without solving it? So we're going to talk about something called the discriminant. So if it says find the discriminant, what they're talking about is they're talking about b squared minus 4ac. They're talking about inside the square root. So if your discriminant is positive, that means you have two answers. If your discriminant is 0, that means you have one answer. If your discriminant is negative, that means you have no real solutions. Okay, so in this equation, it's already in standard form, but my a is 1, my b is -10, my c is 25. So now plug it in to just the part inside the square root. So -10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25. So that's 100 minus 100, which equals 0. If your discriminant is 0, how many answers am I going to have? I'm going to have one root, one answer. Roots means answers. How many answers are you going to have? So same thing here. I want you guys to pause it and try this problem right here. My a is -1. My b is -6. My c is -10. So go ahead and plug that into just the discriminant part and figure out how many answers you're going to have. Hopefully you got no real solutions. All right, so that's discriminant. Last one, it just says the student says that the quadratic formula cannot be used to solve -23x squared plus 5 equals 0. Well, if you remember, standard form looks like this. It's okay if it's missing one part. We just assume that that number is now going to be 0. So do I have an a in my problem? Do I have an x squared? The answer is yes. My a is -23. Do I have just an x? The answer is no, so my b is 0. Do I have a number by itself? Yes, so that means my c is 5. So from here, you're going to plug it into the quadratic formula. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So notice that's going to be 0, so I just have plus or minus the square root of -4 times 23, negative would be a positive 92, times 5 would be 460 over -46. The square root of 460 would be a decimal, and then you would get your two answers. You use a positive 21.45 and a negative 21.45 divided by -46 to get my two answers. All right? So the error is that you can solve it. It's just your B is going to be 0. It's okay if you're missing something. We just assume that that letter is a 0 now. I'm going to give you guys a few problems as homework. If you have any questions, just send me an email. Let me know. I will be online all day to help you.